Hi, this is Professor Favors with the lecture 5 Simple Sentence Patterns. So this is the lecture on 5 simple sentence patterns that correspond to the practices, assignments, and quizzes. And so you can find this course information in the Fundamentals of College Writing Text, which is the core text on pages 29 to 36. So I want to look at the 5 simple sentence patterns, but let's get a definition first of what is the simple sentence. The simple sentence is defined as a sentence that houses a subject and a verb and that makes sense without any additional phrases or words. A simple sentence is called an independent clause. And so if you look at the two examples here, Tom threw the ball and John ran. These are considered independent clauses and they make sense apart from adding other words to make it a complete thought. However, they are not necessarily representative of a complete thought because we would need to know where Tom threw the ball or why John ran or where John ran to make it a complete thought. But the sentences that you see on the screen here are considered simple sentences, independent clauses, meaning that they don't really need anything else to make sense for the sentence, right? So, for example, if we needed something else to make it a complete thought, however, it would be Tom threw the ball across the room or John ran across the room, right? And then you can even add more information about John running across the room, answering why. So John ran across the room to answer the phone. And that would make it a complete thought. But as is, as you see the two sentences on the screen, these are considered simple sentences. So let's look at the definitions, some vocabulary for elements of a sentence. So you have a subject, that is the who or what that performs the action. The subject can also be the who or what about which a statement is made. So, for example, the cat chased the mouse. The cat is the subject, the cat is performing the action. The second sentence, who chased the mouse? The cat. That is a sentence that is a subject about which a statement is made. So the cat is always the subject of the sentence in both of the sentences. A verb, a word that shows action or links the subject to words that describe or identify it. So we see the quarterback fumbled the ball. Tony Romo is the Cowboys quarterback. So the first verb is considered an actual action. So the quarterback is performing the action. He's fumbling the ball. The second sentence is the be verb, and be verb is, am, are, was, and where in conjugated form. That's considered a linking verb. So it links the subject to words that describe or identify it. So Tony Romo is a quarterback or a Cowboys quarterback, and is considered a linking verb. So then we have phrases, a group of words without a subject and a verb. So on the floor, the red car, muddy feet, flowing water. And then the last vocabulary term is clause, a group of words with a subject and a verb. So this gets a little tricky because the dog is sleeping is considered a simple sentence independent clause. It's considered a clause. But if you look at the second sentence, after the class ends would be a dependent clause. So it's a clause, it's a group of words with a subject and a verb. Class is the subject and ends is the verb, but it's not a complete sentence. It's not a simple sentence. It's not an independent clause, and it's not a complete thought because we're missing something. So therefore, it could work as a fragment because a fragment begins with a dependent word like after. So when you understand the simple sentence as functioning as an independent clause, it is easier to detect what might be a fragment or dependent clause. And we're going to get into that later in the semester. Either I think the next lessons are not too far behind. This means that an independent clause can function by itself, which is the mother. The dependent clause cannot function by itself, the baby. The baby needs its mother, but the mother does not need the baby to function fully as an adult. So, for example, the baby needs a caregiver, a mother, a parent, a father to feed it, to clothe it, to take care of it, to nurse it, to do everything necessary for the baby to continue functioning and thriving as a baby. However, the mother does not need the baby to be an adult. The mother is an adult. The mother is a single individual or married individual, 100% responsible adult. She doesn't need anyone to burp her, to change her diaper, to feed her, or anything like that. So, knowing the difference between a mother and a baby, the dependent clause after the class ends, that's your dependent clause. That is DC. That's your baby. Uh, the students walked outside to the courtyard. That's an independent clause. I see mother. If we took away after the class ends, if we completely took away this sentence here and we just left the students walked outside to the courtyard, that would be an independent clause. You don't need anything else. It's a simple sentence. So let's look at sentence patterns. There are 5 simple sentence patterns. This is in your core text. So there's subject verb, compound subject verb, subject compound subject compound verb, and then verb subject where the verb comes before the subject, and verb compound subject. All right. So for the first subject verb SV, Jack fell down a hill. So down a hill, if you remember from the previous lesson on prepositions and prepositional phrases, down would be your preposition, down a hill would be your prepositional phrase. So it tells us where he fell down, where he fell. Compound subject verb. So we have Jack and Jill fell down a hill. So that's your compound subject with a single verb. Okay, keep that in mind. And then my family and I, that's your compound subject, live in Texas. That's your single verb. All right, so then you have subject compound verb. So there's a single subject and then a compound verb. Chimpanzees live and travel in social groups. So chimpanzees is a subject, plural subject, but it needs a plural verb, which is live and travel. And then the subject, the children. So the children here would be one would be the subject of the sentence. And then they ate, swam, and played. So that's compound subject, 3 verbs, ate, swam, and played. And then compound subject, compound verb. So we have Sophie, Gizmo, and Samantha. This is your compound subject. Okay? And then these 3 people eat, sleep, and play. That's your compound verb. Okay. Diana and Jasmine baked cookies and decorated the tree. So compound subject, compound verb, baked and decorated. Okay. Then we have verb subject and verb compound subject. So there were 20 students in the class. Here are your books and papers. Where are your shoes? Did you eat the cake? So if we look at, it's weird how this begins a sentence, but you have to understand what the subject of the sentence is. The subject of the sentence is students. So then after that, we look for the verb, which is where. Where. That's part of your be verb, is, am, are, was, and where. Okay. So it's a verb where the verb comes before the subject. And then here are your books and papers. Same here. Compound subject, books and papers. Okay. And then your verb is are, A-R-E. Again, that's another be verb, is, am, are, was, and where. And then when it's posed as a question, it can get a little confusing, but as soon as you know what the subject of the sentence is, you should be able to find the verb. So this is shoes, is the subject of the sentence. Cake is the subject of the sentence here, right? And then eat would be the verb, as well as are would be the verb here. Okay, so verb subject, verb compound subject. So let's look at some exercises. Let's recap for a minute. Subject, verb, compound subject, subject, compound verb, compound subject, compound verb subject, verb compound subject. Okay. So let's identify the pattern. So the man jogged around the park. So we have a subject here, and then we have a verb here. And that's only one verb in the sentence. So this will be SV. The man and his dog jogged around the park. So the man is your subject here. He is performing, oh, I'm sorry. The man and his dog is your compound subject here. And he's performing, or they both are performing, jog. So then this is compound subject, verb. And then remember, around the park would be a prepositional phrase. This sweet potato pie, so we have a subject here, sweet potato pie, the whole thing, tastes and smells delicious. So we have one subject and then a compound verb. Okay. And then we have a Mazda, a Chrysler, and a Volkswagen. We're in the parking lot. So we have a compound subject, a Mazda, Chrysler, and Volkswagen. Okay. We're in the parking lot. That's your verb here. And so that's subject, verb. And then one of my favorite movies is Star Wars. So remember, this is verb subject. So we have a single subject, okay, not a compound subject, and therefore here's your verb. So verb subject. The neighbors cut the grass, weeded the flower bed, and mended the fence between our houses. So the neighbors, plural subject, but it's not compound, it's singular in terms of this sentence. And then cut, weeded, and mended. Okay? So that's subject, compound verb. And then he and I ran and swam. And he and I represent the subject of the sentence. And he and I both ran and swam. Okay? So then that is compound subject, compound verb. Right? So as soon as you know what the subject is in terms of the subject performing the action, you'll be able to know how many actions the subject is performing. And if it's a compound subject and both parties are performing that action, that should be able to help you. So let's write our own sentence and just keep it very, very simple. I ran. Okay, subject verb. I could say I ran to the store. I could do a number of things. John and I ran. And let's just put ran to the store. Okay. And then John ran to the store and bought some candy. So that's subject, compound verb. And then John and I ran to the store and bought some groceries. Okay? And so we have a subject verb, we have compound subject verb, then we have a subject compound verb, and then compound subject compound verb. Okay, so this is the lecture for 5 simple sentence patterns. Be sure to read your textbook on this topic. But the majority of the sentences and phrasing have been taken directly from the actual course text. This lecture is subject to fair use.